So I woke up this morning to news that Kevin O'Leary is coming out strongly in favor of supply management. He joins other conservative leadership candidates in supporting supply management, citing that it's going to cost taxpayers billions, $30 billion to break supply management. Meanwhile, we have Maxime Bernier, Mad Max, who says, let's break supply management because it's costing Canadian consumers. We need to get rid of it. And so who's right here? Should we keep supply management or should we get rid of it? Well, first of all, let's look at what supply management is. Supply management is a license given to certain producers or business owners to access the market. And so they pay the government a sum of money, and in return, they get access to the market that no one else gets. And so in the case of dairy farmers, they buy these quotas for the very expensive price of $25,000 to $43,000 per cow. So that means that a normal dairy operation with, say, 70 head of cattle costs about $3 million just to access the dairy market. Now, this doesn't include all the other startup costs of a dairy operation, buying the cows, having the land, having the barns and the distribution facilities. And so, when O'Leary says it will cost Canadians $30 billion to get rid of supply management, what he's talking about is paying back dairy farmers for the quotas that they've bought. So, the government is breaking its agreement with the dairy farmers, and so we got to give them their money back, is the argument. And of course, who pays for government activity? Well, it's the taxpayers. So the taxpayers have to pay the dairy farmers to get out of this, and it's going to cost them $30 billion. Very expensive sum, and this seems like an unreasonable amount for taxpayers to have to burden them with. And so, but no one is talking about what it's costing to maintain supply management in Canada. So how much does it cost Canadians to maintain supply management? Well, obviously, it costs them at least $30 billion. How do we know this? Because dairy farmers wouldn't buy these quotas if they couldn't get their money back from consumers, obviously. I mean, this is economics 101, and it seems to escape so many conservatives, which is strange because they're supposed to be the free market people, the capitalists, the people that understand that free market is best left unregulated. It regulates itself better than a central planner could ever regulate it. So, economics 101 says that basically all business costs are passed on to the consumer, and this includes, the regulatory burden. So if it costs them millions of dollars to get through the red tape, well, obviously they're going to pass that on to consumers. And if they didn't think they could pass it on to consumers, well, then they wouldn't start the business to begin with, right? So dairy farmers are making that money off the consumers over time, and then some, right? I mean, dairy farmers seem to be making a pretty good profit. There are a lot of millionaires in the dairy industry. And where does that money come from? Well, it comes from Canadians who buy milk. And in fact, it targets the most vulnerable Canadians the most, right? So we know that the poorest 20% of Canadians pay about 2.3% of their income goes to support supply management. So they're sharing the biggest cost burden compared to, say, the richest 20% of Canadians who only 0.47% of their income goes to bearing the cost of supply management. And there have been estimates that supply management has driven between 133,000 and 189,000 Canadians below the poverty line, because this supply management costs the average household about $438 a year. And that is a substantial amount for people who make, say, $25,000 a year, who have other household budgets to worry about. But what are some of the other costs of supply management? Some of the soft costs? Well, for a guy like me, I like to drink buttered coffee. I know it's kind of weird, but I don't want just any buttered coffee, though. I want grass-fed butter. And it's very difficult to get grass-fed butter unless you know a local producer. I would love to be able to buy Kerrygold grass-fed butter from Ireland because I know that that's mass-produced and grocery stores could carry it, and I could just go to my local superstore or whatever and get Kerrygold grass-fed butter. And more than likely, the infusion of Kerrygold grass-fed butter into the market would signal to local producers and dairy producers in Canada that, hey, maybe there's a market for this. Maybe we ought to start producing grass-fed butter ourselves. But of course, that kind of thing never happens because of supply management. So this is a classic, mafia protection racket. The government, in this case, represents the mafia, and they come around to businesses and would-be entrepreneurs and say, hey, listen, if you pay us some money, nothing bad's going to happen to you. We're not going to bust your kneecaps. But anyone else starts a competing business, we'll bust up their kneecaps. And so, it's going to work out good for you. You know what I'm saying? So of course, businesses buy these licenses from the mob because, they don't want to get their kneecaps busted for producing something that they want to produce. And hey, in the end, they're going to make more money anyways. So why not? This isn't just endemic to the dairy industry. We see this now in the taxi industry. So taxi drivers buy medallions and licenses to operate a cab in a municipality or a city. And, these are very expensive medallions in a lot of places. And now here comes upstart Uber, where anyone with a car can sell and contract with a customer to provide service. Of course, they can undercut taxi cab drivers because taxi cab drivers have to not only pay for the cost of their business, but they also have to pay for this medallion and this license to operate, the shakedown money to the local mob. And so, of course, taxi cab drivers don't like services like Uber because they didn't have to pay that protection money, and they're not getting their kneecaps busted like they should. And so this is a problem faced everywhere, right? And so essentially, I love Uber. I think it's a great service, and we're essentially being deprived of services like Uber anywhere that supply management exists. So how can we solve this? Obviously this is costing Canadians already more than $30 billion. So one way would be just to break the agreement and say, screw you, dairy farmers. But I favor, paying back the dairy farmers. They entered a good faith agreement. It's not their fault that the game is rigged this way. They didn't make it that way. It's the government that made it that way. And so, I feel sympathy for dairy farmers who have bought these licenses and these quotas. But one way to solve this problem, and the easiest way, would be simply to do, I think, what Mad Max is already proposing, which is sell the CBC. Selling the CBC would save taxpayers $1 billion a year, and you'd probably make about $30 billion selling the CBC. You simply pay that money to the dairy farmers, case closed. So Maxime Bernier is absolutely right here. It's embarrassing that other conservatives don't understand basic economics. They've proven this again and again. They're simply liberal. They have the same economic understanding, it seems, as liberals. Keynesian economics, protectionism. We're seeing the same thing. They favor the same thing that the liberals are doing right now in the cannabis industry, which is granting monopoly privileges to people who are connected to government. Justin Trudeau is favoring his friends who have, his former CFO, who is a giant shareholder in Tweed marijuana. And so obviously they're going to get licensed to make money hand over fist, while people like Mark Emery are kicked to the curb and locked in jail and thrown in prison and having his kneecaps essentially busted by the local mafia. So, if you're a principled conservative that favors free markets, favors capitalism, you'll support Bernier on this. I don't know what Bernier is doing in the Conservative Party. It seems like he's the lone sane voice there. But hey, Mad Max, you're always welcome to the Libertarian Party. We have an open Bernier policy.